Today we're flying from SFO to Tokyo in Japan Airlines first class. The goal of the video is to take you on the trip with us, looking at both the good and the bad. That way you can make an educated decision on whether you want to spend your hard-earned points on this redemption. With that said though, huge favor before we dive into everything is to give this a thumbs up. It does help a lot of the algorithm, which means that other people can see this. If you are someone that's new to the channel, then consider subscribing. We talk about how to get outsized value from your credit card points. Alright, let's look at the details of the flight before diving into everything else. This is an afternoon flight for 11 hours and 10 minutes, but it feels more like 12 hours gate to gate. One interesting tidbit is that this flight is flight code JL1. Most airlines treat flight number 1 as their crown jewel, and this is considered their flight of distinction that's supposed to have the best service. To me at least, they definitely did not disappoint. The retail price for this is $20,000 round trip, or about $12,000 one way. Given the hefty going rate, this is a pretty good use of points. One of the reasons is because a lot of programs price things based off award charts. This means that they charge X number of points for main cabin, generally 1.5x for business, and then 2x for first. Since these numbers can change, I'll link to a blog post down below where I cover the points you need, cards to get, as well as how to find availability. The rationale being that it's a lot easier to update those numbers on a blog post than it is to redo a video. On that note, if you do want to learn about cards, we do have links on the website, asksebi.com, down below in the description box. As always, make sure that the links are competitive, that they make sense for you, but otherwise, it is a huge way to support the channel, so thank you guys in advance. Alright, let's head to the airport. We headed to SFO and planned to have about an hour before boarding to enjoy the lounge. The check-in desk had a separate section for first as well as business. Not that we really needed it since most other passengers already checked in. So apparently this was a lot busier about 2 hours ago, so about 3 hours before boarding because a lot of people like to come to the airport earlier. Japan Airlines does have its own lounge in SFO, but it does feel like a weak spot. The lounge is on the left side after security, and you go up one level. Going into the lounge, it doesn't feel that impressive. There is a private area for first class, but it's just a separate room to sit in and it has a sliding door. It also felt a bit weird because everyone else was a business traveler, and there was someone sleeping in the corner, and they were snoring pretty noticeably. Going into the main area, there is food as well as coffee, but it wasn't that great. It's passable and fine, but I think the food on the plane was better.
Big fan. Nice to meet you. What's your Chang. Yeah, actually my son is also a big fan. So I learned from you, that's how I picked it.
And I know it sounds like I'm being harsh, but others agree with this as well. Taking a look at other reviews, opinions range from underwhelming to not worth a visit, and others think it's the saddest first class lounge that they've ever been to. Luckily, I think they are doing a renovation this summer, so it should be a lot better afterwards. If you do want a great lounge experience, there is an argument to route through LAX instead, just because you have access to the Qantas First Lounge as well as the One World Lounge. If our end destination was Japan, we probably would have done that, but since we were going from SFO to Japan to Hong Kong, it didn't really make sense to add another leg. Back to the SFO Lounge, we were there for about 10 or 15 minutes, got some food, got some snacks, but after that opted to go window shopping and duty free before boarding. We've probably been to over 100 lounges, and this is one of the few that we've left early from.
This is like robbery. $45 for coffee, yes? It's like 20 something in store.
Alrighty, Japan Airlines first. Japan Airlines services this route with a Boeing 777 in first class as 8 seats in a 1-2-1 configuration. Mandy and I were in 1D and 1G, which I think is always fun as a couple. If you are by yourself, I'd probably opt for a window seat, but if you are stuck in the middle, or maybe you're sick of your player too, know that there is a partition so you can get some privacy. The seats themselves are also pretty controversial. Some people argue that it's boring and uninspired, which I completely understand, but learning more about it, it's actually an intended design aesthetic. They want the seats to resemble a peaceful sanctuary, and the wood grain interiors and darker tones are supposed to make you feel like you're in a home library. It makes sense if you consider that a lot of Japanese culture is around being understated and being modest. For example, Grand Seiko makes a bunch of great watches with great movements, and they have watches like the Snowflake, which are iconic. At the same time, they don't have the clout or pizzazz of a Rolex or AP. Moving on to the TV, it is pretty decently sized at 23 inches. In 2023, it can feel a bit lacking, especially if you compare it to their competitor A&A's new The Suite product, which has a 43-inch screen. In terms of the seat itself, as someone that's big-boned, the seat is not claustrophobic at all, and it compares pretty favorably to other Asian first-class products. JAL First comes in at 33 inches wide and 78.5 pitch. A&A First is the same 33 inches wide, but a bit shorter at 76 inches. If you are flying to Hong Kong, then Cathay Pacific might be even better at 36 inches wide and 81 inches pitch. The seat also has a ton of different storage options. Obviously, you can put stuff on the top, but there also is an ottoman in front, and you can easily fit a carry-on or even a big backpack. The main storage area can fit a briefcase, but I used it for a camera, a secondary lens, a mini tripod, and a bunch of other random things. There also is a smaller compartment for things that you might not want to lose, like your phone. In front of that is a small mirror, as well as another remote for when you're sitting up. There also is a final small compartment up front where you can charge your phone or something else. You can control the seat using two different controllers. One is a pretty simple one that has stop, upright, relax, and bed, and the other one lets you do a lot more micro adjustments. One thing I really like is that you don't need to hold down the button for the seat to move, unlike some other airlines. There also is a gigantic table that slides from the front ottoman area. In terms of amenities, I love that they have Panasonic headphones. A lot of other airlines drop the ball here and give you pretty crappy ones, and I end up just using my own, but here they have good ones. You also get a pillow and a blanket when you get to the seat, and there's two amenity kits. One is going to be a general one, and then there's a male and a female one. So the main one has things like tissues, toothbrushes, earplugs, combs, mouthwash, and a few other things. This is the men's kit, and the other one is women's kit. They also provide you with slippers and are pretty insistent on you wearing them, and I'm sure you can say no if you want to. So initially they put them by the seat, and then afterwards when they noticed that I didn't put it on, they moved it up to the table, and then finally after seeing that I didn't touch it, they handed it to me. Before takeoff, we both got a glass of champagne. Heads up, but if you are taking an outbound flight from Japan, so leaving Japan, they have Salon 2013, which is some pretty fancy stuff. Salon is $1,000 a bottle, so drink up if you like champagne, and people happily drink half a bottle to a whole bottle themselves. If you're taking an inbound flight to Japan, they have Billy Cart Salmon, also known as Balkasamol. This is still pretty expensive at $100 a bottle, but 10% of the price. You have a third option called Tapies that typically floats at about $100. Once you're in the air, you have a ton of other options. So for example, if you want whiskey, they have Chivas 21, which is pretty nice, about $200 a bottle, as well as Hibiki Blender's Choice. Hibiki is about $300 a bottle, so it's a nice way to try it before making a big purchase. Also a ton of wines, but nothing really jumped out as a must try unless I missed something. For the most part, these are all things that are pretty reasonably priced, so nothing really too crazy. If you are into sake, then try the Haku Rakuse. They're known for producing sake for fine dining and can run for about $100 a bottle. Some pretty nice sochu as well, so they have Mori-Izo, which is about $220 a bottle. If you don't drink alcohol, then I would strongly recommend trying the Royal Blue Tea Queen of Blue. It's basically a tea that comes in a wine bottle. It's supposed to be some of the best leaves that are handpicked. The smell and the color resemble champagne, and it's considered the crown jewel of tea. The deluxe bottle that they have on board is generally $35, but there is a premium bottle for $160. I'm pretty sure Mandy and I finished at least 3 of these bottles because we were drinking like water. If you are looking for something that's more familiar, they do have soft drinks like Sprite, Coke, and everything you would expect, along with fruit juice, Japanese teas, and other teas. For the main meal service, they have a Western menu and a Japanese menu. The Western one looks pretty good. The main dish is a Chilean sea bass as well as USDA prime beef tenderloin. I actually did order a beef tenderloin as a snack later on after a nap, but we'll get to that. For the meal, I ended up going with the Japanese option because we're flying Japan Airlines. The Kurzara had a few different items. The clam and the bamboo shoots are pretty good. Steamed chicken is generally a miss, it's okay here. Crab meat was one of the highlights here. Yam and sesame cream was interesting, and the broad bean was pretty good. Sea bream and lobster with dashi broth jelly was one of the highlights for me and definitely something I'd recommend trying. In contrast, the tuna with sea urchin and soy sauce foam was interesting, but felt like a miss. I'm not sure if this is one of the ones that tastes better on the ground versus in the air. It's funny though because I did get another sea urchin dish as a snack afterwards, and that one tasted better to me. The main was roast beef with some steamed rice, which was pretty good. I think it looked a lot more marble than it really is, but still pretty tasty. Also got some Japanese pickles, and miso soup was pretty good. The dessert was a Japanese starched noodle, which was okay. Again, another one that might taste better on the ground, but felt very similar flavored. Overall, this is one of the better meals I've had in the air, and I'd happily eat it again. After dinner, I had some green tea, and then a coffee. Bathroom is also super interesting, so this is the first time I've been on a toilet that has a bidet while up in the air. There's also mouthwash, toothbrushes, and a few other things. And note that they have fancy towels instead of the normal rough paper ones. Call me crazy, but Japan Airlines has some of the most comfortable pajamas out there. It is a bit on the thicker side, so if you run hot, then maybe it's too warm, but I like it. I've kept a few of the other ones, but I generally don't wear it around the house. This is something that I think I could wear. Other ones generally feel a bit too baggy and thin. This one feels like I'm wearing joggers, and yeah, just pretty comfortable. After dinner, we spent some time relaxing and just watching movies. If you do want to stay up or if you're doing some work, You do get a voucher as part of first class. It's going to be in the binder. This gets you free unlimited Wi-Fi with no data caps. If you'd rather sleep or if you want to stay up while in a comfier position, you can ask them to make your bed. There's 2 different mattress pads, soft and firm. I did firm while Mandy did soft, but playing around in her seat when she went to the bathroom, I think soft is a little bit more comfortable, so I probably would have done that in retrospect. Overall, pretty comfortable, but I wish the blanket was a little bit bigger. I think it perfectly fits the bedding, which is fine, but unless you sleep like a mummy, you kind of want something a bit wider because I do sprawl out, so half my body wasn't really under the blanket. It was fine though because the cabin was a bit warm and I had those long pants on, but still just nicer to have something wider. Also ended up getting a few glasses of whiskey while falling asleep. I think I ended up taking a 2 to 3 hour nap and then woke up and went back to movies and eating. So funny enough, the person in 1K was still eating. Apparently he went through the Japanese menu and then went through the Western menu and was working through all the snacks, so Mandy and I figured that we would try to catch up. So from the a la carte menu, Mandy got the black vinegar chicken and said it was okay. I tried a bit, the chicken was good, but the rice was a bit much. Instead, I went down all 3 of the snacks, so the Japanese delicacy, which is sea urchin as well as yam and cucumber, 3 kinds of chicken meatball skewers, as well as caviar. The caviar was definitely the highlight, but the Japanese delicacy was also pretty good. So for whatever reason, the sea urchin here tasted better than from the main menu. Mandy ended up also getting the Japanese delicacy as well as the caviar after seeing mine, and I think she agreed that the caviar was pretty good. We both took a 30-minute break and then moved into the light meals. We both ended up getting the lobster nochi because it looked the best, everything else looked pretty pedestrian, and I'd say that the lobster was pretty good. I was definitely surprised by how much lobster you got relative nochi, and yeah, I'd recommend this one. Moving to the bottom of the menu, Mandy ended up getting the ramen noodle afterwards, and I had a taste and it was pretty good. Probably some of the best ramen that we've had in the air. I was debating between the Beyond Burger and the cheese, and I figured I'd give it a shot and try to order the tenderloin from the Western menu. Since I think most people ordered the Japanese menu, they did have some leftover, and they were happy to make it. This one was pretty solid and yeah, perfectly cooked and amazing flavors. We heard that 1K was doing a victory lap at the menu and at this point going for his 3rd caviar, so Mandy and I both tried to order a 2nd caviar, but apparently they were out. Instead, I ended up going for the chicken and waffles, and it was okay. So flavor-wise, it wasn't bad. Spicy chili oil along with chicken and waffles hits above its weight class. The fried chicken wasn't great though, and the waffles were a bit soggy, as you would kind of expect from an airplane, so a miss in my book, but flavor-wise, it was pretty good. The lychee panna cotta though was amazing, and I would probably try to order that by itself. I think at some point they either ran out of whiskey or I got cut off, but they just stopped bringing it. So I think I hit about 6 glasses and then they wouldn't bring a 7th one. And I was drinking throughout the whole plane ride, so I wasn't really overserved by any means, but they were probably taking precautions. I think I mentioned this earlier, but the cabin did finish off all the expensive tea as well as the champagne. Not too surprised given that there were 7 of 8 seats that were taken, but I think 1K was carrying the team. Watched a bit more TV before landing and we ended up having the Japanese set menu for breakfast. Pretty solid and the black cod tasted pretty good. I think I would get this one again, especially given that the other option here was chicken and waffles, which is again a skip. We took some more pictures and prepared for landing. Before that though, they did bring us a thank you dessert, which was pretty nice, and yeah, looks pretty cool. Overall, I would say that Japan Airlines First Class is one of the top 5 first class products that you can book with your points. I think the product could use a makeover, but the service 100% makes up for it, and obviously it is their job, but there is just something about Japanese hospitality. Depending on how you value points, I think this is definitely a worthwhile redemption. Call me crazy, but I'd happily trade 2 economy trips for 1 first class trip. And that's pretty much the calculus you're making when you're transferring points over to partners and redeeming through an award chart. Obviously, your mileage may vary because I know new grads are optimizing more for quantity rather than quality, but sometimes quality is nice, even if it's just for 12 hours. There's something about being treated as a VIP, even if you're just a P, that makes experiences more memorable and makes travel fun. Again, if you are someone that wants to learn about cards, we do have links on the website, asksabby.com, and down below in the description box. If you made it to this point in the video, leave a cherry blossom emoji in the comments down below, and I'll try to heart it and also respond. My question for you is, would you take this flight? If not, what's the dream travel use case for your points? Maybe it's taking more trips, maybe it's ANA, maybe it's going to Europe. Let me know and everyone else know in the comments down below. Big favor, give this a thumbs up, consider subscribing, but otherwise, hope you liked it. See you next time.